Good morning, Las Vegas. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Come on, everybody.
Las Vegas, or afternoon, or evening, whenever it is you happen to be tuning in, this is a special edition of Rise and Shine Las Vegas. I'm Jason Hawe. Got a great show coming up, so I'm glad you're here with us. So we're going to have candidate for U.S. Congress, Mark Robertson, will be joining us today. So I'm very excited for that, looking forward to it. But first, I'm just going to ramble for a little bit. The weather, it's been kind of erratic here lately. I was supposed to make a whole report on how beautiful it was today, how sunny, how nice. We got a little bit more rain, so it's keeping things, it's not exactly cold. It's still Vegas, so I'm going to just dispense with the weather for now. Not going to get into the sports, maybe a few other things going on right now. The recent news is that in North Las Vegas, very interesting, they have just announced that there's going to be a Black Business Fair. The North Las Vegas Mayor, Pamela Goins-Brown, has announced that during Black History Month, this is October, in February here, there's going to be this business fair. There's all sorts of events and all sorts of things like that. I remember saying a while back during when the Martin Luther King parade was about to happen, that things have kind of gone the wrong way as far as trying to ease all of those conflicts and tensions, and elevating and isolating those things, those traits, those characteristics, blackness, if you will, is the wrong way to go. It was all about all of us being the same. It was all about all of us being equal and not focusing on one or the other. So tell me what you think about this upcoming event. It's on February 24th in North Las Vegas. And it's already gotten a lot of noise on social media and things in that regard. So I just sit a little uneasy with that, but we'll get on with that later. Maybe we'll talk about that in the later part of the show. But what else is going on? All right, creep you out a little bit. Bed bugs in some of the hotels here in Vegas. Yes, the last finishing off the year, we got the Venetian, got the Mirage, got Excalibur, and Encore, all got busted for those creepy little insidious little things. And it's kind of one of those things in the tourist industry you got to kind of deal with, but they've since been passed, they've been checked, they've been cleaned, or whatever, and all that, but all right. I was trying to actually think about a joke with Californians, but I couldn't come up with anything. But hey, at least we can get rid of the bed bugs with pesticide. Enough about that. Just going to kind of go on a little further now. We're going to let this go. We're going to take a short little break, just kind of get my wheels under me here. And we're going to have Mark Robertson on with us for an interview here. So just stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Traditional TV is going away. Hollywood is starting to fade. People are demanding real stories from real people. Our voices are now being heard in our own way. Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok Live are becoming the norm. Internet TV has now reached the highest demand in human history. Social media shows is now the new media of the century.
Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Skoda with Social Media Shows. Well, I thank all of you for your support through these last several years, and it's been a lot of fun. We've given people a voice they never had before. Now, Social Media Shows is always collaborating with our veterans to help them do things and help out the veterans who are struggling today. And we teamed up with GI Connections, connecting veterans with resources. So please consider helping and donating to this great cause, because we're always doing things for veterans. So GI Connections, Social Media Shows, and you is what makes the world a better place. Once again, Joseph Skoda, proud United States Air Force veteran.
And welcome back, Rise and Shine Las Vegas. I'm Jason Hawe, and with me today is current candidate for U.S. Senate District 1 in Nevada, Mark Robertson. Mark,
hey,
it really is.
Thank you so much. And it's U.S. Congress for.
Did I
Congress.
misspeak again?
You said Senate, but that's all right. It's U.S. Congress.
Yeah, representative. Exactly. Yeah, District 1. Yeah. So tell me about what you're doing here now. Let's just start with that.
So the campaign's off and running. I was the Republican nominee last year, and so we've got an army of volunteers that are still in place. Lots of people know my name. We did very well in the last election, so everything now is out talking to voters. I'm doing meet and greets every day and multiple locations, and it's all talking to voters, finding out what's on their mind, and letting them tell me what the issues are for them. And so that's where I'm spending most of my time.
That's a great way to start. The mechanisms are already in place. All your infrastructure, the whole camp. So now you can really just set about reaching people directly.
That's right. Last time was the first time I'd ever run for public office, and learned a lot of lessons. Just like Ronald Reagan and Abraham Lincoln, who both lost their first election, I learned a lot from 2022 that we're now using in 2024 to win this time.
Absolutely. And any great success usually comes following significant failures.
Yeah, I think you learn more in failure than you do in success.
You would hope so.
Yeah.
It's not always true, but you would hope so. So as far as what you're trying to address, what your goals are, what your ambitions are as a representative.
Yeah, so I don't like the direction the country's going. I don't like the huge government spending, overspending, printing and borrowing money that we don't have, which has caused inflation. And that $35 trillion, going on $35 trillion of debt being left for our children and grandchildren. It's just not the right thing to do. It's not morally right to saddle our kids and grandkids with that type of debt. I don't like what's going on our borders. It's an invasion of our borders, the flow of guns, gangs, and drugs across our southern border. We've got to secure our own borders. It's a matter of national security. So those are the two things I hear over and over from the people I talked with. It's the economy and it's the border.
Absolutely. As far as the immigration and the illegal immigration and all of that goes, Las Vegas, we seem to employ a large percentage, maybe not on the level of California, obviously with their borders, but they seem to be opening up all sorts of benefits and services for them rather than cutting things off.
Yeah.
It's quite a battle that you probably all have in Congress there.
Now, I'm pro-immigration. I mean, my ancestors immigrated to the United States. Most of us would not be here,
right.
except for those Native Americans who were here. Most of us, and so I'm pro-immigration. But it ought to be the people we decide who come here. It ought to be the people who have the skills so they can contribute to our economy right away. It shouldn't be people who just decide to break our laws and come into the country.
Right.
We ought to decide who comes into our country.
Yeah. No, do it the right way and be vetted and be handpicked, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is difficult. Now, as far as how that leads into issues with crime and issues with guns.
Yeah.
Would you feel that the gun issue still ongoing? Again, we're faced with mass shootings every other day.
Right.
And my personal take on it, it's not about the guns. It's about the people that are willing to use them.
That's right. I am all for taking the guns away from criminals, but it does not make any sense to take away law-abiding citizens' ability to protect themselves and their families. So let's take away the guns from criminals. Let's be harsh in our penalties for anybody who commits a crime with a gun. That's not happening right now throughout the United States. We're putting people right back out on the street even though they committed crimes with a gun. There should be harsh penalties for anybody who uses a gun in committing a crime. Let's take the guns away from the criminals. Let's stop the flow of guns from Mexican cartels across our border. But let's protect the right of law-abiding citizens to own and carry guns in their own self-protection.
Absolutely. Now, do you feel that some gun is too much gun? Now, a lot of attempts to rein in gun control has been to draw some lines between what's an appropriate gun and what's too much.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you can't own a tank.
Right.
You can't own a bazooka.
Right.
Now, you're a colonel a retired colonel in the Army, so maybe you can own.
No, I don't own a tank or a bazooka.
But so there are lines drawn in those extremes.
Well, I've heard people say, yeah, you don't need an AR-15 to go hunting.
Common argument.
But the Second Amendment wasn't to protect hunters' rights. It was so people could protect themselves against a despot government. They were fighting the government of England, the world's largest army. They were protecting themselves from their government and from despots. It wasn't so that they could go hunting. It was to protect themselves. And we ought to allow people to protect themselves.
So you're not looking to split hairs or hair triggers, if you will, in that regard, as far as the material, or even limiting, ammunition and rounds and things like that. It's, again, and I have addressed this before, it's really about the state of the mental health of this country.
It is. And there is a maturity issue, too. You mentioned I was in the military, and I commanded a training company for 3 years. So these are new recruits that came in. They're 18-year-olds. And we don't hand them a live M16 on their first day of basic training. They go through lots of training to know how to safely operate that weapon before we ever give them a live weapon and live ammunition. And, the National Rifle Association, I'm a lifetime member of the NRA, they built their company they built their organization on safety and on hunter safety and gun safety. And so they're big advocates of safety programs that would train people how to safely operate a weapon. And so I am all in favor of safety programs to help people know how to safely operate a weapon.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, you teach them how to be safe with it. I wonder how much. In the military, you can't really say this is the value of taking a human life. You can't really delve into the ethics of it per se, because there is a job to do. When to do or die, or when it's simply to ask. Right. So you can't really handle that. But in the rest of the country, there seems to be a real absence of empathy and actually connectivity to that element. People just don't give a damn about their life or others' lives the way, So again, that mental health side of things is what I'm really concerned about.
Yeah, and it's something we really need to take a look at.
Absolutely. Now, as far as some of the other freedoms and things goes, I found that very interesting on there as well. So as far as rights, as far as education, we're definitely going to get back to education. I'm going to save that for the next segment because that's a whole nother wonderful subject.
Great.
But rights, one of the things that caught my eye was the issue of free speech these days.
Yeah.
And what I found is the contrast now with the attack on it by the emotionalism, the woke agendas and things like that. You can't say anything that hurts somebody's feelings or triggers them. The trigger warning thing's out of control.
Right. Yeah, this whole cancel culture that if a group doesn't agree with what you're saying, they make a concerted effort to cancel you and to make sure they silence your voice. You see universities allowing their student body to boo and make noise so that a guest speaker, somebody the university invited to speak, and the university allows the students to make it so that that person can't speak. And the universities are where we ought to have a free exchange of ideas, as long as it's not people calling for the extermination or the genocide against a particular race.
The enormous rash of the highest of our Ivy League schools and the like, with the anti-Jew and the pro-Palestinian and all of that that's going on. It's crossed the line.
Right.
Significantly,
yeah. So I'm a big freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all of the First Amendments to the Constitution, which we call the Bill of Rights.
So, and learning what I have, you're a man of faith. You remember, you're active church goer. And as far as you are a Republican, as far as the other more extreme sides of that party and their views as far as books in schools and things like that, that gets to be another very delicate, very tricky issue. So as far as free speech goes, are there lines that you wouldn't cross as far as what's promoted there?
Well, so deciding what's appropriate in a school has nothing to do with free speech. People people can still go out and buy that book. They can talk about that book. We're not impeding on anybody's free speech. We're going to talk about education, but I'll just say that we are failing our students in math, science, and reading. We need to concentrate on those topics, not on what treating people different because based on their skin color. This CRT stuff. We ought to be focusing on math, science, and reading because that's where we're failing our kids.
I think that's somewhere, the country culturally we are really losing our grip is things like the CRT and so many of the other issues there. It's really I can appreciate that. Now we're going to get back to education, but I wanted to come back to some of your background.
Yeah.
You were a business owner
Yep.
in Henderson.
Yep.
And definitely business rights and the separation, the overreach of government regulation into businesses. I feel strongly about that as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm for small government. If you look at the Constitution, if you read the documents and what the founding fathers envisioned for the federal government, it was a small federal government, not this intrusive monster that we have now that's in every aspect of our life. From cradle to grave, the federal government has something to say about it. That's not what was envisioned. It's not what's in the Constitution. The Constitution gives very limited powers to the federal government. They can raise an army and a navy. They're responsible for international relationships and interstate commerce. They can issue money and those type of things. Everything else is left to the states and to we the people. And I'd like to get back to that, to a small federal government, and having we the people have the rights and the power. That's where it's designed to be.
100%. I agree completely. I've always felt very strongly that the abrogation of a business owner's rights
Right.
is truly a violation of their human rights.
Yeah.
The individual rights, that is private property,
Yeah.
as opposed to public property.
Right.
Public institutions, publicly funded, publicly shared, they're beholden to everyone. They adhere to everyone's expectation. Private property, a business, even though you hang a sign on the door, that might as well be your own home.
Right.
And for the government to step in and say you have to sell to them, and you have to sell to them, and you have to do this, and you have to do that,
Right.
that violates our very individual rights.
That's right. Yeah, I was in a very regulated industry. I owned a financial planning firm, and it's very regulated. About 10% of our largest expense was compliance with government regulations.
Quite sure.
We had to pay a huge percentage of what we took in to pay to make sure we were complying with all of the myriad of government regulations. It's a drain on businesses. It's a drain on the economy. That 10%, those monies, those dollars we paid to comply with regulation didn't go to help the economy at all. It went to the government, and that's not helping people.
Yeah, just more administration, more bureaucracy, more paperwork,
That's right.
and to pay for all of that.
That's right.
Very little of it actually serving the interest of conducting business properly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's certainly something in Congress being what it is, it's kind of one of the things I always think that it's by committee. How efficient could it be if it's need to spell with 2 M's and 2 T's and 2 E's?
Yeah. Fortunately, by design, Congress is not very efficient, and I like that. The founders of the document wanted to make it difficult for the federal government to impose all these laws on it, and so I like that. There's the joke is, if pro is the opposite of con, got that? Pro is the opposite of con. What's the opposite of Congress? Progress. Yeah,
I had forgotten that.
That's right. So we don't want a lot of. We don't want to make it easy for Congress to pass more laws and more restrictions on Americans. Yeah.
I've always thought civilizations have existed for thousands of years. We haven't figured it out yet. We keep having to add new laws every.
Right.
I've been of the same mind. But speaking of, you're not going to be involved or worried about it just yet. But another pending shutdown that they're fighting over there. Do you have any thoughts on where they're at straddling those sides?
Yeah, we have got to get back to regular order where every year we look at every line of the budget and we say, is this program still doing what we want it to do? Is this really where we should be spending our money? The last 2 decades, we have these monstrous bills that come at the last minute under the threat of shutting down the government, and Congress and members of Congress are given a choice: either shut down the government or vote for this monster that we haven't given you any time to read. And
With all the extras attached to it.
all
the
yeah,
writers,
all the
that.
pork and all the writers, and it's just. And that's why we're $35 trillion in debt, because Congress has abdicated their role of watching the purse of the country, and they give all of this authority to this government bureaucracy to make the rules. They pass these monstrous things, and then the bureaucracy would become a fourth arm of the government. So, yeah, we've got to get back to where we're looking at the budget line by line and saying, is this really where we want to spend our money?
It has indeed. So we're gonna talk about a few other things when we come back here. We're gonna take a short little break, and again, back to education, among other things. And well, just stick around, and we'll be right back in just a minute.
Hi, I'm Deacon T with Modern Word Ministries. It's great to be with you today. Just a short little promo for our show. Every Sunday morning we have service, and you can follow us at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on modernwordministries.org. And if you missed us or you want to see some of our older messages, go ahead and check us out on socialmediashows.com every single morning at 9 a.m. It's a great way to kick off your day, get a little bit of the word in you, get something uplifting, get you started off on your way. You know, if you're looking for prayer or you need some help, reach out to us. If you go to our website, again, that's modernwordministries.org, you can interact with me via telephone, via DM, text message, whatever you want. I'll get right back to you. So if you need prayer, you need help, you just need somebody to talk to, Modern Word Ministries is here for you. We are your church in the community. So until you see you next time, be blessed, everybody. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Social Media Shows. Have you been watching social media shows recently? Of course you have. We have been live streaming for 4 years across social media platforms. We produce over 70 shows with over 1,000 episodes. In the process, we've helped over 100 creators realize their dreams and start their own show. We give platforms to promote your business. If you are an artist, if you have an event, if you are entrepreneurs, or if you have a story. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead and subscribe and follow us on major social media platforms. And if you have a great idea of a show, join us. Social media shows can help you produce and live stream your own show. Let us help you make your dream become a reality.
All right, and thanks for coming back. We're here again with Mark Robertson, candidate for U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives, District 1.
That's it.
Very good. So, talked about some really interesting things here thus far. I want to go back again to your background. And again, very impressed. Served 30 years in the Army, retired as a colonel. And not only that, but served with your son in Iraq, was it?
I did. My son was at the university during that in that 2008 period when the war in Iraq was not going well. You might remember every day you would turn on the TV and there'd be reports of roadside bombs killing American soldiers. That's what's going on in Iraq. And my son calls and tells my wife and I that he's joining the Army. I said, Stephen, don't sign anything. And I went straight to the university and I said, why are you doing this? You don't need the money. And he says, I'm not doing it for the money, Dad. I said, well, why the Army? Why don't we talk to the Air Force? And he said, no, the Army will guarantee I can learn a language. I said, what language do you want to learn? And he said, Arabic. I said, Stephen, if you learn Arabic, they're going to send you to Iraq. And his answer was 3 words. He said, I know, Dad, he was doing it because he thought it was his duty to go to Iraq, and he was willing to volunteer and to learn Arabic, and he did. He spent, so he went to basic training, he went to his military intelligence school, spent a year and a half at Presidio of Monterey learning Arabic, and then in 2010 he came down on orders for Iraq. So I immediately looked for an opportunity to volunteer, to be there, and so I deployed at the same time. We weren't in the same unit and not in the same location, but I was able to see him 3 or 4 times while we were both deployed.
Was that a relief?
It was a real honor for me to be able to serve on the field of battle with my own son.
Sure.
It was terrifying for my wife.
I'm sure.
For the entire year that we were gone, she flew a flag outside of our house with 2 blue stars on it, indicating family members that were in harm's way. But we both came home without any physical harm. Stephen struggles a little bit with some of the things that he saw and experienced while he was there. But we both came home without any physical damage.
Tremendous. That it had to be a combination of he learned from his father. All those years. It's almost inevitable that he would at least have some of those same values and some of that same drive.
Yeah, we had never talked to him about him joining the military, so it was a bit of a surprise.
Really?
But it was a real, like I said, an honor for me to serve with him. When he was promoted to sergeant, I'm the one that pinned his sergeant stripes on, and he saluted me, and it was pretty cool.
That's pretty memorable. That's special.
It was cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, coming back to politics, and from the military's perspective, really still an ongoing mess right now with how things are being handled in Israel with Palestine and Hamas. It still a lot of pressure now from the UN to ceasefire. Now, fortunately, the U.S. has vetoed that just recently.
Right.
It's an ugly thing, though, with the way Israel's trying to root them out.
Right.
What can they do?
Yeah. Well, there's not an easy solution. If there's an easy solution, it would have happened sometime in the last 70 years. I mean, this has been going on since 1945, and so there isn't an easy solution. But Israel has an undeniable right to defend itself. And when Israel governed the Gaza Strip, they didn't have these terrorist organizations operating in there. It's when Israel, in a peace gesture, allowed the Palestinians self-rule within the Gaza Strip, and they voted for Hamas, a terrorist organization, to lead them. And so the fathers and the mothers who voted for this should take some responsibility to what has happened to their children, because they're the ones that chose a terrorist organization to be their leaders. I feel for the children. I do.
Not only that, but they're continuing to inhabit that city and those areas where Hamas is still working in and out of, and they're not ejecting them.
Right.
They're not kicking them out of their basement or their attic.
That's right. They're not saying, hey, they're over here.
Get out of the hospitals.
Right.
So they do have to bear some responsibility.
No, there is. I've felt the same way when I served in Afghanistan, and it bothered me. There were Americans in Afghanistan, and we were losing our lives, and there were fathers and sons and brothers who were not Afghans, who were not standing up to protect their wives and their mothers and their sisters from the Taliban and from the ruthless rule of these Islamist extremists. At some point, adults need to stand up. We did. We didn't like the tyrannical rule of England, and we stood up and we fought for ourselves and our own freedom. We need people who are willing to do that and stand up for their own and take responsibility for their own situation.
And they do. They keep rooting them out, and it just gets. The only thing that's focused on now in the media is those kids.
Right.
They're wailing and crying and wounded, and that's the only thing being sold right now.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is it's hasn't been even talked about again for a while, just how atrocious, how horrific those acts were.
Right.
All the way back on the 7th.
Right. And Hamas promised to do it again.
They did, by all means.
They said we'll be back and we will do it again.
Do it every chance we get.
Yeah.
And the rest of Palestine is just fodder.
Right.
They are born to sacrificed.
Yeah, they have Hamas has no concern for their people. They're hiding behind those children. They're using children as human shields. Yeah, what bothers me, obviously that's a terrible situation and no easy answer. But we see Iran's behind all of this. Iran's behind this, and
pushing a lot of buttons,
and all of these other groups that are attacking American ships and attacking American warships.
It's expanded
because they see weakness in the White House. They see a weak president who's not willing to stand up.
Maybe he just forgot.
That could be. That's very good, Jason. That could be.
But it's true, and now that we're sort of kind of split, now we're trying to police the South China Sea. Now we're still dealing with supporting Ukraine,
right?
And now we got this over in the Middle East,
right,
and the Mediterranean there. So yeah, America is sort of kind of spread out a little bit, and it's made us a little bit more vulnerable. It's almost a matter of should we just kind of hit them harder?
Well, look at what's happened in the last 3 years. Just 3 years ago, when Biden took office, things were pretty peaceful. Even the Biden administration came out bragging about how the Middle East had settled down. Well, everything's in flames now. You look at Europe and Russia feels emboldened to be able to go into their neighbor countries, and they're not going to stop at Ukraine. And China's watching our reaction to Putin, and they've got their eye on Taiwan, and rogue terrorists in the Middle East don't have any hesitation to attack American interests in Syria and Jordan. And
everybody sees right now our hands are full, and we are spread out all over the place.
And we have a weak president
of Korea, just chomping at the bit.
Yeah, and he's got nuclear weapons that can reach the United States, and all because of weakness in our president.
It's a bit. Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot when it comes to Trump, but I will say at least Trump had enough attitude and enough nerve to just tell everybody to basically piss off.
Yeah.
And was sort of perceived as crazy enough that you didn't want to get him too riled up.
I served in the Pentagon during the Trump administration, and there was a different feeling there. There was a feeling that that America's strong and that America will stand up for itself. And we've lost that. That. Yeah.
By all means, we're apologizing again, and we're bending over with the whole woke thing, the whole cancel thing, the whole modern sensibility. We're bending over so much now that we're starting to crack.
Yeah, you're right, Jed.
So let's do something more positive and talk about the future of this country. That's going to be the kids.
I think the future is bright, and I think this is still the greatest country in the history of the world, and that we Americans have so much to be grateful and optimistic. And so I'm glad. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Now, it does sort of dovetail because a lot of what's going on in our culture that is sort of kind of undermining things, there's a real battle for that being part of public education.
Right.
Now, you taught in charter schools, among other things.
And in public schools.
And public schools. Yeah. And I really appreciated your take on basically public versus private education, or self-determined education.
Yeah.
So
I have 4 kids. 2 of them teach, and 2 of them are married to teachers. And so we are an education family.
Absolutely.
And 2 of them teach in CCSD schools. 1 of them teaches in a charter, and 1 in a private organization. And I support all of them. I support parents having the right to decide which of those options is best for their child. If you read the Constitution does there's nowhere in the Constitution that says the federal government should have any role in educating our children. None. We should disband the U.S. Department of Education and take the $86 billion that they spend every year and block grant it back to the states in the form of vouchers that parents can use to pick the school that's best for their child. Parents are the ones who should be making these decisions, not bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. So I support education, and I support our children and support parents' rights to decide what's best for their child.
sets up, though, another complicated issue as far as how that money is dispersed and how that money is determined in the first place by taxation, as far as who's paying for whose education. So it's complex, but I agree completely.
For me, it doesn't seem complex. For me, it's the open market. You have schools competing for those dollars.
Capitalism.
Yeah. And competition raises everyone's performance. So you give a parent a voucher, and they can use that voucher wherever they want, whatever best for their child. And they have a choice. This school is teaching math, science, and reading, and this school is teaching to judge people by the color of their skin. Which school is the parent going to pick? Well, they're going to pick this one. And this school is either going to change or die. They'll have to respond to the market, and the market is parents who want their children to get a proper education. Mm-hmm. That lifts everyone's performance. And you know who's most in favor of vouchers? It's the people in those failing inner city schools. It's the ones who are trapped in these failing schools. They're the ones who want vouchers. They're saying, give me the opportunity that these wealthy kids have. Right. Let me pick for my kids and give them those opportunities. We owe it to them. They ought to be able to do that.
Maybe they could go to a school without metal detectors and security guards and things, hopefully.
There's a very successful private school in Henderson, and the tuition that the parents pay there is less than what Clark County School District pays per student. So if you just take the money that Clark County School District's spending and give it to the parent in a voucher, they could go to this private school that does very well in Henderson. So for me, it doesn't seem complicated. For me, it seems, there's details that need to be fixed up. Transportation's one of those details. But we're smart enough.
But at its heart, I agree completely. I've always felt that if you want something as far as social services go or anything like that done right, get it out of the government's hands.
Yeah.
Do it yourself. Private industry, free market, do it privately, and all the charities, all of the treatment programs and things like that generally are more effective and run more efficiently when they're done by private.
Now, I am not against public schools. Again, I'm a product of public schools. My kids teach in public schools.
I was fortunate in my public school.
Yeah, but give them an option. Give parents an option, and give an incentive for public schools to raise their performance.
Yeah.
Less than half of Clark County School District children can perform math or reading at the grade level.
Right.
That is a failing. Less than half. That's failing. And so we've got to do something. And I think introducing competition is the answer.
I like that. Tremendous. Now, as far as some of the other things on your platform, some of the other things you're working on, I thought interesting term limits for Congress.
Yeah.
I've always found that it's sort of the issue of the practical versus the principle.
Yeah.
Because I've always felt if people are too dumb not to vote somebody out when they've had enough, then they deserve what they get.
Right.
But there is a practical element to that it makes sense. It really should only be for a handful of terms or years.
In Nevada, we have a state law that says anyone in public office, state or local, can only serve 12 years. I think we've got that right. So we have term limits in Nevada for state and local, but not for federal positions. When the founders of the Constitution, founders of our country, when they wrote the Constitution, they never envisioned a permanent political class.
No.
They envisioned that you would leave your farm for a while, go do your duty, and then you come back and you serve under the laws that you created. But that's not how it is now. We have these career politicians. When Joe Biden brags about spending 50 years in Washington, D.C., he shouldn't be proud of that. He should be embarrassed.
Right.
Embarrassed that he's never had to come out and live under the terrible laws and bureaucracies that he's created. So I'm all for term limits. Now, the problem is it'll take a constitutional amendment to do that. And the members of Congress who could initiate that process aren't going to vote themselves out of office.
Right.
But we, the people, like you said, we can vote somebody out.
I've always felt that's the way it works.
Right.
You don't want them in. All right.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I'm running against a career politician. Dina Titus has been in Congress for 14 years, and before that, she was a career politician in the state of Nevada, and and a university professor. She's never had to make it in the civilian world. She's never had to live under the laws that she created. And her time's through. It's time for her to go, and we'll get some fresh ideas in there.
By all means there. So moving into that seat, where do you feel the Republican Party is at this point in time?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of disarray in the Republican Party in Congress. It's that very narrow majority that we have. And one of the things that's a positive about that is that Republicans think for themselves. They don't have this herd mentality. You know, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, she made sure that her Democrats all voted the same way, whether it was good or not, good for the people they represented or not. They voted one way. But Republicans, they look at who they represent and they make sure that they're representing them. So for me, I can't promise. There's 435 members of Congress. I cannot promise what the other 434 will do, but I can tell you what I'll do as your representative. I want to make government work for the people of my district. So if there's a veteran who's not getting the benefits that they're supposed to be getting, I want to fight for that veteran. I can do that without the other 434 members of Congress. I can make sure that the Veterans Administration is taking care of our veterans. I got a phone call from somebody. She had been contacting Dina Titus's office and going nowhere. The lady's name is Hope, and she contacted me just because she saw one of my campaign signs outside. She tracked down my phone number, and she called me, and she asked. She told me that she lives in senior housing and that they have mold in their housing. So my wife and I went over and visited with Hope, and she was a little bit short on hope because the government was failing her. And so we saw the mold, we saw the pictures, and that's something. And this is a federal issue because it's subsidized by the HUD, HUD Urban Development, and the member of Congress should be doing something for Hope because the government's failing her. Those are the type of people that I can promise that I will work for the people in my district to make sure government works for them.
I was going to ask you that very same thing, is that you are endeavoring to be a representative of these people here, but turning around, how would you be able to affect directly the people here?
Yeah, if you think of our government, the president represents the entire country. Senators represent their state. It's the House of Representatives that represent the people. And so there's 750,000 people in my district. That's who I represent. That's who I'm in DC fighting for. That's where I'll spend my time. And I know that you look through my record, and I have a record of service in our community. I was a scoutmaster, and I taught youth sports, and I was on the board of directors for Opportunity Village and for the Salvation Army. Serving people in our community is what I do, and I get a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment out of it, and I now want to do that at the congressional level.
I think that human connection, whatever your job is vital to keep energizing and keep driving you, and will keep you honest and keep you, grounded.
Right, and that's what House of Representatives, that's where we should be. We should be. That's where we should be, is talking to the people, that human connection, I should say.
To say nothing of how hard it was for them to find a speaker.
Yeah.
The little egg on their faces on that.
Yeah.
But,
a lot of disarray. Yeah.
But get a little bit more military leadership in there, and maybe that'll.
Yeah, we're at a near record low number of veterans in Congress right now, and maybe there's something to that. The disorder and the confusion going on in Congress. Maybe it has something to do with we don't have enough veterans there.
A bit more discipline, a bit more of a code, a bit more of a...
Now, our veterans have already proven they're willing to put the needs of the country ahead of their own. And there's something about that.
Very interesting. So, going back to some of the other things there as far as, the issue of families and family values is something that's really been turned into a straw man and really a scapegoat in a lot of ways in the country, as far as going all the way out to this end of spectrum of family values. And Where do you feel, again, you're not necessarily been determined by your party's views or stands on one side or the other, and I guess the Republican Party's kind of got two halves of it these days.
Yeah.
Where are you at as far as what kind of guide, what kind of consequence, what kind of structure is possible for families these days?
Yeah, good. First on the question of, the party, and there's different directions in the party and so forth. So here's my promise. I will be loyal to the Constitution and to the people of my district, not to any particular person or party. So it's the people of my district that I'm loyal to, and the Constitution. And then family is so important. In our campaign, our tagline is freedom, family, and prosperity. But if you think about it, the strength of any community is reflected in the strength of the family. Strong families build strong communities build strong cities, build strong states, and build a strong nation. It all goes down to the strength of the family. And too many forces have been tearing families apart. If you talk about people of privilege, you have the oppressed and the oppressors, and the oppressors have privileges. Well, the greatest privilege in the United States is to have two parents in the home, to have a father and a mother. Unfortunately, nearly half of American families don't have two parents, and they're
Let alone two healthy and functional parents.
Yeah.
Because the level of toxicity and dysfunction
Yeah.
in many couples is certainly not helpful.
That's right. And so if we can get back to faith-based programs that support the family and support the home, and we give incentives. Right now the government gives financial incentives not to have a husband. They pay you more if you don't have a spouse. And so we got to stop incentivizing the deterioration of the family and encourage that core nuclear family to stay together.
It almost sounds to me like that's sort of an outside-in kind of approach, though. Again, you two stay together because you had a kid, and you two are a mess. It's again, maybe it just goes back to the overall eroding mental health state of the country as it is. Because for that matter, I wonder if we shouldn't have licenses in order to have children. You got a license to drive a car. What about to actually create a life and turn them into a human being?
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother subject.
It is
a whole nother
and not something that's easy, and certainly not something I want the federal government to try to fix. I want them to stay out of
less government.
That's right, less
Right.
government, but I would like to see the strengthening of the family in our communities.
Certainly could use more of that, for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up another subject, perhaps, as far as the faith-based and all of that goes. I'm personally of the mind that morality is independent of any religion, that there exists a code of morality and a philosophical foundation for morality,
Yeah.
regardless of faith.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere that's where some of the conflict comes from in adopting any sort of moral code, because it's always adhered to in a religious faction.
Yeah.
Something we could talk about.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think organized religion can do a lot to help with these things, but I think somebody who just has their own moral code can still live a moral life, and I know people who aren't a part of a organized religion who are good, honest, faithful people. So.
And I'm sure a lifetime in the military has taught you many things in that regard, independent of any fixed belief.
Right.
And again, honor and integrity and honesty, things like that. So
Yeah.
it seems like you've got more than enough on both sides of things there.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason.
So we're going to wrap things up here. And Mark, it really, really was an honor to have you
I
here.
enjoyed it. Thank you, Jason.
I want to thank you for joining us. We're going to take just a short break, and I will be back in just a moment. We're going to let him get on with a really fascinating campaign here this year. I think you're due.
Thanks.
So again, thanks again, Mark.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. And I will be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Skoda with Social Media Shows. Well, I thank all of you for your support through these last several years, and it's been a lot of fun. We've given people a voice they never had before. Now, Social Media Shows is always collaborating with our veterans to help them do things and help out the veterans who are struggling today. And we teamed up with GI Connections, connecting veterans with resources. So please consider helping and donating to this great cause because we're always doing things for veterans. So GI Connections, Social Media Shows, and you is what makes the world a better place. Once again, Joseph Skoda, proud United States Air Force veteran.
And welcome back. Final little goodbye here, if you will. It was really awesome. I had Mark Robertson here with me today, and it was a really great talk. There's so much more that we could get into, so definitely going to hope to bring him back again sometime soon. So it's been a great month, too, overall. We've had both mayoral candidates, two of them, with Victoria Seaman, Shelley Berkeley. I want to encourage any of the other mayoral candidates. We're going to reach out to you, reach out to us. I'd love to have you on here and just kind of help you along the way as far as what you're doing with your campaign. So definitely want to get to know more of them. It's been really awesome. Now, for me, well, we're going to wrap this thing up now, but next week, I really am thrilled to. I get to join Dawn Sullivan on her program, Vegas Views. We're going to co-host that on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, so I'm really excited for that. I love Dawn. She's fantastic, so looking forward to that. We're going to be back with Rise and Shine at its normal time at 11 a.m. as well. So keep watching. I really am glad you were here. And thanks again. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you again soon.